People are stressed out about modal verbs because there are at least 8 of them, each with at least 3 meanings. So every time you see a modal verb, you have to consider at least 24 possibilities to pick the correct interpretation. However, learning modal verbs should not be this difficult. In fact, modal verbs altogether only have 3 types of meaning. Other meanings are only additional nuances created by context. The 3 meanings are the degree of possibility, the degree of obligation, and the unique meanings some modal verbs have. Let's take a look at the first one, the degree of possibility. It refers to how much can something be true, judging by logic and past records. The higher the word's position, the higher the possibility that something is true. The words in this segment tell us that something is certainly true. For instance, if an elephant steps on this plastic box, it is certain that the box will break. In this case, you say the box must break if an elephant steps on it, or the box will break if an elephant steps on it. The words in this segment tell us that something is probably true. For instance, if an adult steps on this box, the box will probably break. In this case, say the box would break if an adult steps on it. If you are less sure, you can always use should, can, and could. Lastly, the words in this segment tell us that theoretically, it is possible that something is true. However, you are not so sure about it. For instance, if you put this giant Christmas tree on the box, it is theoretically possible that the box breaks. However, you are not so sure about it. In this case, you say the box might break if I put the Christmas tree on it. Please note that would, could, and might have nothing to do with the past tense when they're used to express possibility. Could I help you does not mean whether it was possible for the person to help you in the past. It means whether it is possible for the person to help you now. Anyway, if you want to talk about negative possibilities, that is, how much something is not true, the word order changes a little bit. The word can moves up to the top while the word must is taken out of the list. This is because the phrase must not can be mistaken for the obligation not to do something instead of negative possibilities. I'll deal with this later. Anyway, the words in this segment tell us that something is certainly not true. For instance, if I put this rubber duck on the box, it is certainly not true that the box will break. In this case, you say the box cannot break if I put a rubber duck on it. The word in this segment tell us that something is probably not true. For example, even if I put several metal ducks on the box probably won't break. In this case, say the box should not break even if I put some metal ducks on it. Lastly, words in this segment tell us that theoretically, it is possible that something isn't true. However, you are not so sure about it. For instance, if I put this giant Christmas tree on the box, theoretically, it is possible that the box wouldn't break. However, you are not so sure. In this case, say the box might not break even if I put this Christmas tree on it. Now, let's move on to the second meaning of modal verbs, obligation. Obligation refers to how much someone has to do something. The higher the word's position, the more forced you are to do something. The words in this segment tell us that you're allowed to do something. However, there are other options, and those options are just as good. For instance, you can use the phone if you want, means that you're allowed to use the phone, but not using it is just as good. People also use these words for permission and light advice. It makes sense if you think about it. When you give permission to someone, you're basically saying that the person is allowed to do something, but other options are just as good. For instance, you may go to the washroom, means you're able to go to the washroom, but not going there is also fine. When you give some light advice to someone, you're saying that it is allowed to do something, but other options are just as good. As in, you can use a new torch if you don't like the old one. What you need to remember is that when you ask for permission, may and might are the polite ones, as in, may I get an extension for my project's due date, professor? Moving on, the word in this segment tells us that you're supposed to do something. There are other options, but people think those options are bad. For example, if I say you should wear tuxedo to the party, I mean you can wear other clothes, but people consider other clothes a bad option for the party. People also use this word for expectations and heavy advice. It makes sense if you think about it. Expectations are the good options for certain situations, as in you should say thanks to people who help you. And heavy advice is basically saying other options are bad, as in you should really study hard for this test. Lastly, the word in this segment tells us that you're required to do something, and there is no other option. For instance, if you borrow books from the library, you must return it means that you have to return the books and there's no other option. For the obvious reason, the word is used for obligation. Please note that would, could, and might have nothing to do with the past tense when they're used to express obligation. For example, you could use other knife if that one is blunt does not mean you're allowed to change the knife in the past. It means that you're allowed to do it now. On a side note, if you want to talk about negative obligations, that is, how much you shouldn't do something, follow this graph. The word order changed a little bit. The word can moved up higher, and could, may, might are taken out because they're too weak to express negative obligation. In addition, the bottom is replaced with the phrase don't have to. The phrase in this segment means that you're allowed to not do it. There's a lack of obligation. If I say you don't have to join the project, it is allowed that you don't join the project. The phrase in this segment means that you are expected not to do it. You can still do it, but people think there will be bad results. For instance, if I say you shouldn't skip school, I mean that you can still skip school, but there will be bad results. The phrase in this segment means that you are required not to do something and there's no other choice. When I say you must not break the law, I mean there's no choice other than not breaking the law. Now, it's time to move on to the last meaning of the modal verbs, the unique meanings some modal verbs have. Firstly, the word will can refer to someone's intention, as in, I will overcome this problem and I will become successful. Secondly, the word can be a statement of ability. When you want to tell people that something is possible, but you don't want to think too much about the degree of possibility, just use the word can, as in, too much UV light can destroy your skin. Lastly, the word shall is like the word will if used with the subject I, as in, I shall overcome this problem and I shall become successful. When used with the subject we in a question, it expresses a polite question, as in, shall we dance? However, if used with other subject, shall is like the word will but with a very authoritative tone, as in you shall not pass. The reason why I introduced possibility, obligation, and the unique meaning is that you can interpret modal verbs much faster if you only think about these three options. For instance, let's say you came across the sentence, "Hi, you must be Mr. Benson, nice to meet you." First, think of possibility. If the word must means possibility, the sentence means it is certain that you're Mr. Benson, nice to meet you. This makes sense. Next, think of obligations. If the word must means obligation, the sentence means you're required to become Mr. Benson, nice to meet you. This doesn't make sense, because you can't tell someone who to become when you first meet the person. Lastly, the word must doesn't have a unique meaning. Then the logical interpretation in this situation is strong possibility for the word must. You can interpret all other modal verbs in the same way. This is it for the modal verbs. For other small details, check out our blogs in the link below. It was nice having you, and goodbye.